Well, by June of next year, Atlanta will become the first major city to have demolished all of its housing projects. Today brought the raising of the historic Bowen homes. Tacoma Newsom is here now with more on what the city is calling progress.
Russ and Amanda, Bowen homes opened at a time when public housing was popular, but along with the physical structures of the Bowen's homes housing project goes a painful past. What stood for more than 40 years now stands in disrepair and ruins. This is what the Bowen Homes projects looked like in the 60s. At the time, they were modern, uniquely constructed homes. Here's a picture of the first family to move in. Also in the photo is the widow of one of the men the project was named after, Dr. J.W.E. Bowen. But behind the hype and happiness of a new housing era is the tint of Jim Crow era racism.
This housing was set up expressly for blacks and blacks only at a time in our history that is very unfortunate. It was never designed to be successful.
Over the years, the Bowen homes and Atlanta housing projects in general began to be a cauldron of issues, a hotbed of crime, joblessness, and low education. Fox 5 News has covered homicides, drug crime, and conflict between the housing authority and residents. A tragic note in the home's history was a furnace explosion that sent glass into the apartments and residents running for cover.
The heater exploded and blew her back up the steps.
Now, 45 years later, the Atlanta Housing Authority is tearing down all of their housing projects. Instead of putting families in one area, residents are given vouchers to live just about anywhere.
So they'll be looking at the quality of the schools, the quality of the neighborhood, the amenities, being closer to jobs, being closer to church, family, and that type of thing.
Last week, the last of the occupants moved out, but Demetrius Richardson is still a Bowen Homes resident for now. Today, he's not celebrating.
We had this land. This was our land. You should not move our father's landmark. Did they forget that?
On reflection, there's no question that this is the right direction, and Atlanta, the families, and the nation will be the better for it.
Now, officials at the Housing Authority say they took the residents' opinions into consideration and got an overwhelming response. According to them, 98% of the residents wanted to move out of Bowen homes. Amanda?
All right, thank you very much. Investigators are back out at McDonough Police Headquarters.
Just before we get out, I think we should note historically that Bowen Homes, the last of Atlanta's big public housing projects, was torn down this week, razed.
Atlanta, the first city to get a project and the first city to get rid of all the projects.
And just think of the history of that. Eleanor Roosevelt came to Atlanta to dedicate the first ever public housing project, and that was Techwood Homes, right?
Homes.
And now, all these years later, Atlanta becomes the first city to tear down all their public housing projects in favor of mixed-use kinds of things that seem to be successful. Renee Glover at the Atlanta Housing Authority should be enshrined in a Walk of Fame. Do we have a Walk of Fame?
We need one if we don't. But I agree, and I think it's much better to have a diversity of income levels living together rather than have, you know, isolated projects of poverty.
You deconcentrate the poverty, and that really helps the crime and the upkeep and everything.
Well, no, it's a remarkable accomplishment, and it should not go unnoticed. All right, when we come back, when there's